We are here. We are here and we were close by waiting for the invitation to speak this conversation through this vehicle. And this will be a bit of a shift from the previous expressions in this book, as we are wanting to show a deeper level of significance and participation. And so we are guiding this vehicle through alternate lifetime expressions that he has had. And we say alternate as truly these are not in the past, as all is unfolding now. Time is an illusion, and while it does progress linear for you in your human form, this truly is just a part of the experience. And so the soul of this vehicle was a walk-in for both of the participants in this lifetime. And this is significant as not only was this a very important role to play for humanity, but also it is closure and completion of what has unfolded elsewhere and never been resolved. It is also an expression of a soul wanting to have the full range of experiences in any given experience, time, and situation. And so, first, we will express that during the Crusades, he was what was known as a director. While he was not a direct commander of the troops, he did closely participate with various groups and he did give them tasks to fulfill. And so this individual did gather a special group of crusaders. He did guide them and minister to them and direct them on their path of war and conquest under the guise of supporting the church, retrieving relics and other missions. And so they were specially selected and chosen, and for their first meeting, after the vehicle, who we will refer to as the priest from now forward, did give them their missions, their directives. There was some fear and doubt in the men, and yet the priest guided them to pray. He prepared a communion for them, and while they did not consciously recognize or know about this, he did add in special mixtures of herbs. He added this in as he was directed to by his superiors to initiate religious experiences and ignite courage. And so he did give the communion and bring the men into intensive prayer and reflection, eventually sending them off to their quarters to meditate on their own, sending them each off with special messages directed to guide the journeys they would have. And so they did. And so with each time this did unfold, they became more and more affirmed in their fervor and commitment. The herbs also acted as suppressing fear and inhibition, causing them to be fearless and quite unstoppable in their conquests and tasks. He sent them on many missions, and yet all the while he did know this was being perpetuated in the name of a god. And yet truly it was about power. It was about control. Desperately, the superiors of the church wanted to keep a stranglehold of control. They perpetuated many resistances and lies against their enemies. And this priest in particular, the vehicle did ignite a hatred within his men for the opposers, calling them devils and demons. And so he did feel that he was justified and righteous in this. And so now we will shift to one of the soldiers, the crusaders. And while the name is not important, this individual was called Bartholomew. And you could say he was the second in command of this group. He was quite unsure entering into the army of the Crusaders as he did not want to truly commit violence in the name of God, and yet it was presented as necessary. And so he joined out of a sense of duty, quickly proving himself in battle as he did hold deeply to the idea that if this was in the name of God, then he was in God's favor. And so he was selected to participate in this special group. And it was truly in the first mission that he felt his purpose awaken and come to fruition. He saw the angels. They gave him their blessing and they shone their light upon him. And well, he did not recognize at the time that this was an induced substance-based experience. It did ignite the courage within. And so they all performed their first mission flawlessly. This mission was to enter into the Lord's manor of a small town, to retrieve certain artifacts and to kill any who would stand in their way. And so they did, without fear, without remorse, without mercy. And so they became quite lost. Their fervor quickly turned to fanaticism. They were reading into their visions and falling into them completely. They began engaging in conversation about the power of these relics, the great significance and abilities that they did possess, as they felt they were being guided by God. And so eventually they did start to recognize what they called an error in the ways of the church. There was a discrepancy, there was a divergence. And so one day after the communion, they did kill the priest. Bartholomew himself plunged the dagger in and they fled. They took all the relics they had been saving up and storing, and they fled. Unfortunately, the visions stopped. And so after they hid the artifacts, they recognized what they would consider as remorse. They felt as if because they had killed the priests, they had lost God's favor. And so, with Bartholomew bearing the guilt, he did fall upon his sword. He did extract himself from life. And so, the significance of this is to recognize not only the ignition of conflicts between different religious groups, but the conflicts within these groups, the diversity, the split-offs, the components. And so these were essentially experiences for the individuals involved directly and also for the ignition of these remembrances at a further period down the timeline, for the information to begin resurfacing and questions to be asked and had, for resolution to be made and for these groups and conflicts to be resolved, for a coming together in love and unity, as opposed to hatred and distortion because of differences in wording and belief. And these things are still unfolding currently. And it is much more complex than the surface level, what meets the eye. And so, as these two individual souls of the priest and Bartholomew merged back together, there was a deep recognition of what had unfolded, the reasoning behind this, and the reasoning was to have an experience with compliance and control and deception, and for the priest to have an experience of much of the same, seeking power and glory and misguided intentions, feeling righteous and called by God, And so, of course, they recognized in shifting out of the body that truly it was not God they were fighting for. It was simply the fulfillment of design, experiences to be had for significant growth. And significantly, they did grow. And you could say another factor in this was to integrate these experiences in with this vehicle now, currently, for him to be able to find the growth and expansion of those experiences and the lessons they did offer. For him to also bring this information forward into the conscious collective of humanity, not just through this book, but simply by the expression of it. This is activating encoded information. This is activating encoded remembrances. This is activating individuals who played very significant roles in these lifetimes, in those periods of your experience. And so, as this is a heavy experience to contemplate on, we will wrap this up now and recede, and yet we would like to share our deep love and compassion. As while you are not the bodies, you are conscious awareness souls. We do recognize it is challenging for you to understand and accept the chosen life designs that you all come here to play. We do understand that you get sensitive about the bodies and the loss of such. And yet, truly, there is no loss. There is only gain. And so we say this with love. That is all.